Let's get on with the details of those stories now. The country's new strategy aimed at fighting corruption is yielding some results. That's the assessment of the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice after 3 years of implementing the 10-year anti-corruption plan (NACAP). The plan was adopted in 2014 by Parliament and was to provide a blueprint to combat the menace. Today, a ceremony has taken place to begin a week-long observation of anti-corruption and transparency in Ghana. SWAJ boss Joseph Whittal said provision of resources for anti-corruption agencies can help the nation improve upon its gains.
We had no strategy as a country to fight corruption, and that 3 years on, since 3 years ago, we now have a strategy with a vision, with people knowing what they collectively are to do separately. That is a long way, that is progress. And by the way, we used to always sit and say, what is government doing? What are the anti-corruption agencies doing? Now, the fight against corruption is not limited to only agencies. It's also about civil society, private sector. We can all do something in the fight against corruption. So 3 years on, when you look, even though we're yet to review progress somewhere in Saturday, I think, from my perspective, we have really began the fight against corruption in a more sustained and sustainable manner.
But it appears the perception is not changing. I mean, quite recently, the NCC carried out a study. The perception is still as high as it has always been.
Yeah, the perception will not change until we begin to do things collectively. The perception is currently fed from what is government doing in the fight against corruption. Is government prosecuting people? But if we then move beyond looking at what governments should do, and we see what we can do collectively, civil society, what can civil society do to contribute to the fight against corruption? Civil society, media, the private sector, individually, with what we can all do. If we begin to look at the fight against corruption from that perspective, I think we would see a trending down of the perception.
But there are some who say that that is what influences perception. When people want to see SWAJ take action, they want to see government officials, because there are lots of issues of corruption that keep cropping up on a daily basis, and when people are not nailed for them, they wouldn't have a reason to want to change their ways.
That's fine. Government, anti-corruption agencies like SWAJ will continue to do their work, but we expect funding, at least for the agencies. We expect leadership from government, and you will agree with me, there is leadership in the government. Putting the anti-corruption fight at the center of everything. From what the senior minister has said, you see there's complete commitment. From the angle of the anti-corruption agencies, you will agree that we are also letting Ghanaians know that the fight against corruption is not only about prosecution, it's also about prevention. It's about all of us contributing. So don't sit back and think, oh, they can do it. Or government should do it. Oh, SWAJ, what are you doing? No, that is not how it should be. And I think that message is going out well.
SWAJ boss there. Well, government has over the past 11 months been criticized for failing to prosecute any former government official, despite many allegations leveled prior to the 2016 elections. Senior Minister Yawo Safo-Mafo, who was at the event, vowed that no individual who has benefited from corruption will be left off the hook.
I have a message from the president. The president, I just attended a function with me. We just commissioned the Zenith Bank headquarters. That's what we were there this morning. And he told me that when you go, we have emphasized the point that we are certainly going to make people who have wronged this country through corruption suffer for their deeds. Wow. But we don't want to do this in a hurry. We must do thorough investigation. We shouldn't do things in such a way that we are after our political opponents. Far from it. We must do it in such a way that people who have wronged the system are identified through thorough, and the emphasis is thorough investigation and the answer for their crimes. We have the laws of this land, and we must use the laws of the land, not to punish anybody, because of being an opponent, but to punish people because they have wronged the system. They have been corrupt in the system. So investigations are still going on, and very soon, I think the results will be out for every Ghanaian to hear and to see.
Thank you.
Senior Minister Yao Safumafo there. Well, you would recall the President Akufo-Addo commended CEO of the Jospon Group, Joseph Siao Japan, for his role in creating jobs as an entrepreneur. That was just weeks ago. But anti-corruption crusaders described the comments by the President at the time as disappointing against the backdrop that the government or the governing party made reference to corruption against Jospon, named in as part of their anti-corruption campaign. Senior Minister Yao Safumafo, for responding to a question on the appropriateness of the President's comment, said it's certainly not right, and I quote,
people who take what the World Bank says as sacrosanct. The World Bank support sometimes for corporate companies is different from support for individuals. And this same World Bank, there are companies which have come and created problems for us who have been supported by the World Bank. So I think that what you said the World Bank said, somebody said it, that the World Bank said, for instance, I'm not aware of World Bank trying anybody and putting anybody off. And do they even have that right, the World Bank? If people do business and they foul in the business, they must be found guilty by the law. The World Bank should not pronounce on, there should be the law of the country concerned, isn't it? We must prosecute our criminals here in Ghana. The World Bank comment on criminals in Ghana is not what we are looking for. We are looking for people going through the due process of law, being found guilty by the land law, and being dealt with. So we must be careful how you take some of these write-ups you see. We have some individuals making a lot of effort as private individuals, and governments are interested to have their own nationals also come up as individuals to succeed in business. So we should be very careful. I'm not aware of the World Bank condemnation, but if they did, why didn't the country where they found the law deal with that fellow? If you go and you found the law in Nigeria, the Nigeria law should apply to you, and you should be judged and whatever it is in Nigeria. I have never seen the World Bank passing guilt and no guilt on businessmen.
So let me just put a bit of meat on it. So to the extent that in the media there's a perception that the company was involved in corruption, and the President's endorsement without some explanation or background as to why, because I think his question is that what message does the President's endorsement of the company send to perceptions about commitment to fighting corruption? So it's more a perception issue.
Give the wrong signals. If you are seen to be pampering or endorsing a known wrongdoer, that one is not right. But we must all be very sure that that condemnation is also accurate.
It's founded.
That's the point I'm making.
Okay.
If it's accurate, then so
fair enough.
And still on corruption issues, Shraj says it has concluded its investigations into allegations of conflict of interest leveled against Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta in the issuance of a $2.25 million bond. Shraj intends to release the report before close of this year. Mine is Wilana Ada. She's the programs manager at Ghana Integrity Initiative. Thank you very much for your time now here on the Pulse. Now, what are your general impressions of what government makes of what it has done about corruption, you know, over the past few months that they've been in power?
Thank you very much, Matilda.
It's gifted.
Unfortunately, I didn't hear anything on the sound bite you played. But today...
So it's essentially, if I could just put in this information, essentially the point that they're making is that we heard the Shroud boss speak to the effect that the fight against corruption seems to be yielding some results after, you know, just about 3 years of implementation of the NACAP.
Okay, great. And so for us, back to the question you asked, as to how the fight against corruption is going by government in the few months they've been in power. That is a difficult question to answer. because they've been in power for almost 1 year now. And so if we are making an assessment, we should be making the assessment based on a certain baseline. But at the launch of today's Anti-Corruption Week celebration, there were some indications as to exactly what we have been doing against the fight against corruption in Ghana. And one of them, which we have already reiterated in a meeting last week, was the various researches and the scores we have achieved or obtained as a country. If you look at the CPI for 2016, Ghana dropped, and Ghana has consistently dropped over time. Not much improvements have been made. And the corruption barometer that was launched as part of the Afro barometer last week indicated citizens' perceptions of corruption is so high. And to mention one significant thing that everybody acknowledged at today's launch is the fact that, apart from the fact that perceptions are increasing, the actual experiences of citizens' corruption is also increasing. The next level, as one of the speakers would put it, is the corruption at the local level as well is increasing, and that is significant. So as the senior minister indicated, not much has been done. And based on the commitment they made during the electioneering campaign that they would fight corruption, citizens have a right to say not much has been done. But he went on to promise that the president had indicated various investigations have been going on, which we have had cause to ask when these investigations are going to result in prosecutions. And mind you, that is not all of it. We should have a focus on sanctioning corruption, and then we focus a lot also more on prevention of corruption. Right. It is critical. If we do both, we would be achieving results.
During this week where we are observing, the Anti-Corruption Week that you just launched, what are the steps we're taking towards what you've just said, preventing or prevention?
Thank you very much. So for the first time, if you have, if you were at the program, or if your media house was at the program, you would realize that the various civil society organizations, various anti-corruption bodies, that is state, then we come to the development partners, came together because we realize the fight against corruption is a collective one and not an individual affair. And so the first step is to recognize that we need to work together to be able to achieve those results. And so that is how come we came together and formed a platform to plan this week's activities. One of the activities is a national anti-corruption conference that will be coming on Friday. And at this meeting, we are going to do an assessment of our NACAP. Over the last 3 years, we have been implementing it. Apart from that assessment, we would come up with a plan that is all stakeholders involved, the private sector, the public sector, the religious bodies, and everybody in Ghana coming up with a plan to start a concerted effort around prevention, around advocating for sanctioning, and also ensuring that education goes down well in Ghana. So that is one of the commitments we are taking on ourselves. And then during the whole week, we have planned several engagements, and one is the flagship program of CDD that GRI, GSCC, and ASILA are part of. We would be having a radio program on Joy FM that would be talking about the Anti-Corruption Week and why citizens have to come together to fight corruption at the national level if we are to win. And if you look at other activities, many other forums are being held by the private sector. Last Friday, we had our engagement with the police. And these are very informative because we are coming up with strategies on actions going forward to be able to fight corruption effectively.
Okay, we'll say very big thanks to you for your time. here on The Pulse. I've been speaking to Mary Akufo-Addo. She's the programs manager with the Ghana Integrity Initiative. We're talking corruption. We're taking a very quick break. We'll be right back. Please stay with us.